Jai Bharti. Namaskar. Today we will take an important subject regarding the conflict between the Arya Samaj and Shankaracharya. Because recently I attended a session of Arya Samaj and I found out few things where they were saying about women were not allowed to hear the Vedic mantras and lead was poured in their ears. This was the reason. And also, the uh, they wanted to set up a narrative against the temples or the idol worship. That is okay. So, in that context, we'll take up this particular issue and how to avoid this. So, see, we all know that the Shankaracharya, Adi Shankaracharya, the contribution of Adi Shankaracharya and also the contribution of Swami Dayanand Saraswati. So, Shankaracharya was a great philosopher, and Dayanand Saraswati was primarily a reformer. He wanted to reform the society. Shankaracharya, he revived the soul of this Sanatan Dharma when it was fading under the impact of Buddhism. Dayananda, he wanted to reform the society because it was weakened by some superstitions. See, Shankaracharya taught about the oneness of self, whereas Arya Samaj was more on the nobility of conduct. And they are both are very important for the Sanatan Dharma. So now let's discuss the basic difference between the two. The scriptural authority of the Shankaracharya, Adi Shankaracharya, is basically Advait and based on Vedas, Upanishad, Bhagavad Gita, and Brahma Sutra. Whereas Dayanand Saraswati's Arya Samaj is primarily considering the four Vedas only. Concept of God. Shankaracharya considers Nirgun Brahma or the formless God, and Sagun is also accepted as a help or assistance for devotion. Whereas the Dayanand Saraswati, he only accepts the Nirankar or the Nirguna, Nirakar, the formless Ishwar only, and rejects idol worship. That is then path to liberation for the Shankaracharya is basically about the self-knowledge or the jnana and vivek or the discrimination. So basically self-knowledge and discrimination. Whereas Arya Samaj is basically on the karma, yagna and the social reforms based on the Vedic injunctions. Attitude towards idol worship for Adi Shankaracharya Advait will be they will permit Saguna worship as a teaching aid, ultimately pointing to the formless Brahman. Whereas Arya Samaj will completely reject the worship as a deviation from the Vedic worship, the formless or the monotheistic Vedic worship. The Whereas Shankaracharya, the views on Smriti and Purana, they will use Upanishads wisdom and reconcile Smriti symbolically. Dayanand was very critical about the Smriti and Puranic additions seen as corruption of Vedic truth. Social emphasis more on monastic renewal, preservation of philosophical unity, whereas Arya Samaj is more on active social reforms, education, women's right, and anti-superstition. So now let's go back to uh, mm, the contribution of Arya Samaj. Arya Samaj has done a lot of contribution. We all know, uh, right from the upliftment of women's and having bringing Vedas to the normal people, opening schools, even in freedom fight there. Uh, Whereas our Shankaracharya, he actually revived the entire Hinduism, and he actually made this particular Sanatan Dharma as very strong. That even after 1000 years of foreign invasion, nothing happened to it. Means some damage has been done, but we could face that onslaught. So now coming back to the question of about the women. See, we all know that Vedvyas and Valmiki, they were from Shudra, this Varna, and their contribution towards it's well known, nothing to discuss. Now the women like Ghosha, Lopamudra, Apala, Viswara, Romasa, Gargi, and Maitri, their contribution toward the Vedic knowledge is immense. So now the question comes, when when um, uh, when these women they created or they assisted or contributed towards Vedas, how could that same society would pour uh, lead into the ears of the women who wanted to hear or chant the Vedic mantras? So this thing which is erupting from the Arya Samaj is not healthy for the society. This will create a conflict. Directly hitting at Shankaracharyas, not accepting the other forms of other books, particularly Bhagavad Gita and Upanishad. Okay, only core toward the Karm Kand based Vedic mantra. Whereas we all know that Bhagwan Krishna has actually said in this second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, he has been critical, not we will say critical, but mild criticism, which we can say in Hindi as Samalochana, for the Karmkands of these Vedas. So this thing has to be, it should be very, very clear that, see, Vedas are good, but then beyond a limit, things has to be seen in a different way. He says very clearly in Shloka 42 of chapter Shloka 42 of chapter 2, Ya imam pushpitam vacham pravadanti avipaschita vedvadarta partha nanyatasti iti vadina. He is very, very critical that only adhering to the Vedas will not be sufficient. Right from sloka 42 to till 47, everything is same. So people have to understand this, because these particular karmakans will not be liberate. See, they are karmakans are based on dharma. Very good. Dharma to earn more of your earth and kama. But then it is limited to dharma, earth, and kam. Whereas Chatushtha Purusartha will comprise of moksha only also. When you do sakam karma, that fourth aspect is lost. That is what Bhagavan Krishna is saying always. He says about karma phal sannyas. You do the karma, just let the result come from the nature, the God. Don't keep the result in front of you and then work, or don't work. So in that concept, I think this has to be understood by the Arya Samaj also, that only karma kand will not help. Probably Shankaracharya is equally important, in fact more important, if you consider that. And it's also depicted in Bhagavad Gita. Now the second thing which I like to say that about this the idol worship. See, the idol worship, they started saying that, okay, why you are feeding giving something to Bhagwan and then accepting it prasad? Why don't you feed other people? See, this is basically a symbolism. Then perhaps there is no difference between people. Means, see, this is basically the Murti Puja is through for the adhyatmic reasoning. See, like Shankaracharya said, for the ignorant, God is in the idol. For the wise, the idol is in the God. Everything is Brahma only. So, see, this means, this is very, very clear that saying something to it will actually create divisions within the Hindu society, which is already fragmented. ISKCON criticizing Ramakrishna Mission, this form criticizing them. Not good. See, you have a freedom, whatever you are based on understanding. You may be purely formless, like or Advait. In Advait also, Dvait, Visist Advait and Advait. Then the Dvaits. Arya Samajis are mostly Karmkandis, the Vedic Karmkand. Yes, it has benefit, but then everything is having some limitations, and that is why people search for more or in a different way. This is our contribution. A contribution of a soldier, a contribution of a saint are not the same. But one can't say that only soldiers are required or only saints are required. No, everyone is required. A farmer is required. For the society, everyone is required. And that is why there was a need. So my only humble request will be that we should not get into these. Instead, concentrate more on Arya Samaj should concentrate more on their own functions, which is teaching of the Vedic mantras, Vedic Karmakand. That is good. But giving a resent and should avoid giving their resentment towards the Shankaracharya for women being this lead being poured in their ears and the futility of idol worship. They should refrain from it. Already there is a lot of what do you say? What attack on Hinduism from the other people. There's a whole bunch of people who are converting us just because they know the divisions. So let's work on unity, and that's all. Accept them as they are. That's all. And if your way of thinking is better, it will prevail. Already Arya Samaj is decreasing. Arya Samaj is decreasing because when you become very strict, then things become bad. See what is the fate of Arya Samaj in Pakistan? You had a lot of temples in Quetta, in Karachi, in Lahore. Where are they today? So, if the system remains, you will remain. If Hindus remain, then only Arya Samaj will remain. It's not vice versa. Hope I am making it very clear. If Hinduism is there, all this Peeth, Kabirpanthi, Gorakhpur Samaj or Vaishno Samaj or Ramakrishna or Chaitanya Mission or Arya Samaj, they will remain only when there is Hinduism. Please understand it. So, Dhanyavad. Thank you. Namaskar.